Rain fell hard, thunder shook the windows. Zane Rodriguez wiped greasy hands. The old Chevron station closed soon. It was 8:47 p.m. on a Tuesday night in Millbrook Valley, Ohio. 17-year-old Zane had been working since dawn, his oil-stained blue coveralls bearing the faded embroidery Rodriguez Auto Repair across the chest pocket. His dark hair stuck up in all directions, and his calloused hands told the story of someone who'd been turning wrenches since he was tall enough to reach under a hood. 2 years ago, his father had walked out on the family, leaving behind nothing but unpaid bills and a broken-down garage. Zane had dropped out of high school to keep the business running, supporting his mother Carmen and his 12-year-old sister Lucia. The weight of responsibility sat heavy on his young shoulders, pressing down like the storm clouds overhead. Every night, he counted the day's earnings with trembling fingers, always coming up short. The electric company had sent their final notice. The bank was threatening foreclosure. His mother worked double shifts at the textile mill, coming home with fabric fibers in her hair and exhaustion etched into her face. Lucia had stopped asking for new school supplies, accepting hand-me-downs without complaint. Tonight felt different though. Darker somehow. The storm outside matched the tempest in his chest, a 17-year-old boy carrying the weight of a grown man's world. The bell above the door chimed as an elderly woman stumbled in from the storm. Her silver hair was soaked, and her floral dress, once cheerful with yellow daisies, now clung to her thin frame like a second skin. She clutched a worn leather purse against her chest, her hands trembling from either cold or fear, maybe both. "Please," she gasped, water dripping from her hair onto the cracked linoleum floor. "My car, it just died out there. Right in the middle of the road." Zane looked up from the invoice he'd been writing, his heart sinking. Through the rain-streaked window, he could see an old blue Honda Civic sitting crooked in the parking lot, steam rising from under its hood like a dying breath. The woman appeared to be in her mid-40s, with worry lines etched deep around her hazel eyes, the kind of lines that came from years of sleepless nights and stretched paychecks. "Ma'am, I'm real sorry, but we're closed for the night," Zane said, his voice heavy with genuine regret. Then he noticed her shivering, her lips tinged slightly blue. "But, hold on. Let me grab you a towel first." He disappeared into the back room, past the coffee pot that hadn't worked in months and the space heater that barely warmed the office. When he returned with a clean shop towel, the woman was staring at a faded photograph on the wall, him and his father from better days, both grinning beside a restored Camaro. "Thank you," she whispered, accepting the towel gratefully. "I'm Patricia Henley. I work nights at the hospital, cleaning the surgical ward. I was driving home around midnight when the engine just quit. Made this awful grinding sound, then nothing." Her voice broke slightly. "I pushed it off the road, but it wouldn't start again. I've been walking in the rain for 20 minutes, looking for help. Everything else is closed." Something in her voice reminded Zane of his own mother during those first desperate months after his father left. The same exhausted desperation, the same barely contained panic that came with being a single parent with no safety net. "I don't know what I'm gonna do," Patricia continued, dabbing at her wet hair with the towel. "I can't miss work tomorrow. I'm already on thin ice for calling in sick last month when Tyler had the flu. And I can't afford a tow truck or a big repair bill." She pulled out her wallet with shaking hands, revealing a few crumpled 20s. "And some loose change. I've got maybe $80 to my name until Friday." "I know it's not much, but, ma'am," Zane interrupted gently, walking to the window to study the Honda. Steam was still rising from the hood, and he could see coolant pooling beneath it. "Let me take a look. If it's something I can fix tonight, I'll do it. We can work out the payment." Patricia's eyes filled with tears. "You don't understand. I can't take charity. I've got my pride, and it's not charity," Zane said firmly. "It's business." I fix cars, you pay what you can. Simple as that. They rushed out into the storm together, their footsteps splashing through puddles that reflected the neon chevron sign. Under the hood, Zane's flashlight revealed the problem, a burst radiator hose and a loose alternator belt. Not catastrophic, but enough to strand someone on a night like this. I can fix this, he called over the rain, already mentally calculating the cost. Radiator hose is about $30, belt's another $15. With labor, it'd normally run you around $90. Patricia's face fell. I don't have $90. Zane studied her face in the dim light from the garage. The way she held her purse protectively, the worn soles of her shoes, the careful way she'd counted her money, he recognized all the signs. His mother had worn that same expression. Too many times. Tell you what, he said, already reaching for his tools. $60. Parts only. I'll waive the labor since you're stuck in this weather. I can't let you do that, Patricia protested, but relief was evident in her voice. Ma'am, I've got a little sister at home. She's 12, and sometimes she has nightmares about being stranded. Somewhere with no help. I'd hope someone would help her if she needed it. As he worked, rain soaking through his coveralls, Patricia told him about her life. How she'd married young to a construction worker named Mike. How they'd been happy for 15 years before a crane accident took him away, leaving her with 8-year-old Tyler and a mountain of medical bills. Mike always said he'd take care of us, she said, her voice barely audible over the rain. Had life insurance and everything. But the lawyers found loopholes, and the insurance company fought every claim. By the time they finally paid out, it was a fraction of what Mike thought. He'd left us. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. I had to sell the house, move to a tiny apartment. Started working nights because the pay's slightly better. Tyler stays with Mrs. Morrison next door. She's 78 and watches him for free because she's lonely. Zane's hands worked steadily as she talked, tightening the new hose and adjusting the belt tension. He thought about his own father, who'd promised to always be there for them. Promises, he'd learned, were often just words. I had a brother once. Patricia continued, her voice growing bitter. David. He inherited our father's construction business when Dad died. I got nothing. Dad always said girls didn't need businesses, they needed husbands to take care of them. She laughed bitterly. David tried to give me some money after the funeral, but I was so angry about the will, I said terrible things. Called him a thief, said he didn't deserve what Dad built. We haven't spoken since. That was 15 years ago? Zane asked, emerging from under the hood. 15 years of pride and stubbornness. When Mike died, I thought about calling David. But I was too proud to ask for help from the brother I'd practically disowned. And he had his own tragedies to deal with. She paused, then continued quietly. His son Marcus died in a car accident 3 years ago. Just 18 years old. I wanted to go to the funeral, but I didn't know if I'd be welcome. By the time I worked up the courage to call, months had passed. What do you say to someone after that much time? Zane straightened up, wiping his hands on a rag. You say you're sorry. That's all anyone can do. There, he said, gesturing toward the car. Try starting her up now. The Honda roared to life on the first try, headlights cutting through the rain like hope-piercing darkness. Patricia's eyes filled with tears as she gripped the steering wheel. I don't know how to thank you, she said, pulling out her wallet. You're an angel. She counted out 3 20s, her hands shaking slightly. Zane could see it was probably her grocery money for the week, but she handed it over with dignity and tact. You take care of yourself, Mrs. Henley, he said. And drive safe. As she drove away, Zane stood in the rain for a long moment, watching her taillights disappear into the storm. He thought about his father, who'd always preached about looking out for number one. Maybe that's where the old man had gone wrong. Maybe looking out for others was what made you human. The following morning brought unexpected consequences. Zane arrived at work to find his mother waiting in the office, her face streaked with tears. The bank called, Carmen said without preamble. They're starting foreclosure proceedings next week. We've got 10 days to come up with $3,000, or we lose everything. Zane felt the world tilt beneath his feet. Mom, I know you're doing your best, Mijo. But it's not enough. It's never been enough since your father left. That afternoon, as Zane worked on a stubborn transmission, he found himself thinking about Patricia's story. About pride and stubbornness keeping families apart. About how quickly life could change, and how sometimes the people who should help, you were the ones too proud to ask or too hurt to reach out. He was still lost in thought when Patricia's Honda pulled into the lot the next day. But this time, she wasn't alone. A tall man in an expensive charcoal suit emerged from the passenger side, his steel-gray hair perfectly styled despite the humid Ohio weather. Mr. Rodriguez? Patricia called out, her voice nervous but determined. I'd like you to meet my brother, David. Zane wiped his hands on his coveralls, studying the man before him. David Henley looked to be in his early 40s, with the kind of confident bearing that came with success. His suit probably cost more than Zane made in a month, and his leather shoes were unmarked by the gravel parking lot. I'm David Henley, the man said, extending his hand. Patricia told me what you did for her the other night. Zane shook his hand, confused. She didn't mention having a brother. We haven't spoken in 15 years, David said quietly. Not since our father's funeral. I tried to help her after Dad died, but Patricia was angry about the will. She said some harsh things, and I let my pride get in the way of doing what was right. Patricia stepped forward, her eyes glistening. I called David yesterday. For the first time in 15 years, I swallowed my pride and called him. Not to ask for money, but to tell him about you. About what you did for a stranger. I don't understand, Zane said. Looking between them, David reached into his jacket and pulled out a photograph. It showed a teenage boy with dark hair and familiar eyes, wearing a blue mechanic's shirt. The boy was standing beside a young girl, both of them smiling at the camera. This is my son Marcus, David said, his voice thick with emotion. He died 3 years ago in a car accident. He was 18, just a year older than you are now. Zane felt his chest tighten. Sir, I'm real sorry for your loss. Marcus wanted to be a mechanic, David continued. He was always tinkering with engines, dreaming of opening his own shop someday. He had this idea about helping people who couldn't afford expensive repairs. Said there had to be a way to make it work, to help folks without going broke yourself. He paused, collecting himself. When he died, I threw myself into work. Built the company bigger and bigger, thinking that somehow making more money would fill the hole he left behind. But it didn't. Nothing did. Patricia wiped her eyes. When I told David about what you did, how you stayed late to help a stranger, how you charged only for parts when you could have charged full price, he said you reminded him of Marcus. The same heart, the same desire to help people. I've been looking for a way to honor his memory, David said. And Patricia's story made me realize what Marcus would have wanted. He would have wanted to help someone like you. Zane shifted uncomfortably. I appreciate that, but I'm not looking for charity. It's not charity, David interrupted. It's business. I own Henley Construction. We're one of the largest contractors in Ohio. I maintain a fleet of over 200 vehicles, and I've been paying top dollar to outside mechanics for years. He pulled out a business card. I need someone reliable, someone I can trust. Someone who has the same integrity my son had. I'm offering you a job, Zane. Head mechanic for our entire fleet. $60,000 a year, plus benefits. Zane stared at The card, his mind reeling. 60,000? The work would be based here in Millbrook. I'd set up a satellite maintenance facility, lease you a proper garage with modern equipment. You could hire local people, maybe even train some apprentices. Give other kids the chance Marcus never got. But why me? Zane asked. You don't even know me. David and Patricia exchanged glances. Because, David said slowly, when my sister was stranded in the rain, scared and alone, you didn't turn her away. You helped her when you didn't have to, charged her fairly when you could have taken advantage. That's exactly what Marcus would have done. Just then, a young boy with sandy hair and bright blue eyes came running around the corner of the building. Tyler had been exploring the lot while the adults talked, his sneakers splashing through puddles with 8-year-old enthusiasm. Mom! Uncle David! There's a really cool old car back there. Tyler exclaimed, then noticed the serious expressions. What's wrong? Are you crying? Patricia knelt down to Tyler's level, smoothing his damp hair. Nothing's wrong, baby. Uncle David and I were just talking to Mr. Rodriguez about some grown-up stuff. Uncle David? Tyler's eyes went wide as he looked at the man in the expensive suit. The one from the pictures Mom keeps in her bedroom. David's face softened as he looked at his nephew for the first time in years. The boy had his mother's eyes but his father's stubborn chin. Hey there, Tyler. You've gotten so big. Last time I saw you, you were just a baby. Mom says you build big buildings, Tyler said with the directness of childhood. She says you used to be friends when you were kids. We were more than friends, David said quietly. We were family. And family should take care of each other. As Patricia and David slowly reconnected, sharing stories about Tyler's school and David's business, Zane watched the reunion unfold. He thought about his own family, his mother's exhausted face, his sister's carefully hidden disappointment when she couldn't get the school supplies she needed. Mr. Henley, Zane said finally, I need to ask you something. Why now? Why come looking for me instead of just sending Patricia money? David considered the question carefully. Because giving her money wouldn't have brought us back together. It would have been another handout, another reason for her to feel ashamed. But you gave us a reason to talk. A bridge back to each other. He looked at the photograph in his hands. And because Marcus would have wanted me to help someone who helps others. Not with charity, but with opportunity. The chance to build something meaningful. Over the following weeks, Zane found himself torn between hope and fear. The current garage was barely keeping them afloat, and the foreclosure deadline loomed like a storm cloud. But accepting David's offer felt like abandoning everything his family had built. It was a conversation with his sister that finally helped him decide. Zane, Lucia said one evening as they shared a dinner of pasta and canned sauce, why don't you ever talk about your dreams anymore? What do you mean? Remember when you used to talk about going to college? About becoming an engineer? You had all these plans, and then Dad left and you just stopped talking about them. Zane set down his fork. I had to grow up fast, Lucia. Dreams are luxuries we can't afford. But what if you could afford them? What if you could help more people and make more money? Tyler's mom says you could do both with this new job. You talked to Mrs. Henley? She comes to the library sometimes when Tyler's in reading group. She told me about the job offer, about how you could learn more about cars and help lots of families, not just ours. Lucia reached across the table and took his hand. I don't want you to give up your dreams because of me and Mom. That's not fair. That night, Zane sat in the garage long after closing, surrounded by the tools his father had left behind. He thought about Patricia's story, about pride and stubbornness keeping families apart. About David's lost son and the dreams that had died with him. He thought about Marcus, the boy he'd never met but somehow understood. A kid who'd wanted to help people, who dreamed of making a difference one wrench at a time. The next morning, Zane called David and accepted the position. 6 months later, Zane stood in the parking lot of the new Henley Construction Fleet Services, watching his mother cut the ribbon on the modern garage facility. The building was everything he'd dreamed of: state-of-the-art equipment, proper ventilation, enough space for 6 vehicles at once. Patricia stood beside him, Tyler clutching her hand as he watched the ceremony with wide eyes. David had been true to his word, setting up not just a job but a career path that could benefit the entire community. 3 other young mechanics worked alongside Zane now, including 2 apprentices from the local high school. "I enrolled in night classes," Zane told Patricia as they watched the celebration. "Automotive engineering at the community college. David's paying for it," says Marcus would have wanted to go to college too. "And your family?" Patricia asked. "Mom's working days now at the front desk here, better pay, better hours, full benefits. Lucia's in the gifted program at Tyler's school. They're both happy." Patricia smiled. "You know, when my car broke down that night, I thought it was the worst thing that could happen. I was scared, alone, broke. Now I realize it was exactly what we all needed." Zane nodded, thinking about the photograph in his wallet, the one of Marcus and his sister that David had given him. He'd never met the boy, but somehow he felt connected to him, as if Marcus's unfulfilled dreams had found a way to live on. "Sometimes," he said, watching Tyler chase his cousin Chloe around the parking lot, "the worst storms bring the best changes." His sister Lucia ran up, her new school clothes pristine despite having spent the morning helping organize tools in the garage. "Zane, Mom says you're gonna be an engineer." "Eventually," he said, ruffling her hair. "But I'll always be a mechanic first. It's who I am." As the crowd dispersed and the family headed home for dinner, Zane took one last look at the garage. Above the bay door, a new sign gleamed in the afternoon sun: Henley Construction Fleet Services, Professional Automotive Care. Below it, in smaller letters, "In memory of Marcus Henley, who believed in helping others." David approached, his tie loosened and his expensive suit jacket slung over his arm. "Thank you," he said simply. "For what?" "For giving my sister a reason to call me. For showing me what Marcus would have wanted. For helping me remember that family is worth more than pride." Zane looked at the photograph one more time, then carefully tucked it back into his wallet. The rain had stopped falling long ago, but the seeds it had planted were just beginning to grow. In the distance, thunder rumbled softly, not the angry roar of a storm, but the gentle promise of new growth to come.